flat, and clouds made of fire, and mountains stretched up to the sky, sometimes higher. Folks roamed the earth like big rolling kegs. They had two sets of arms, they had two sets of legs, they had two faces peering out of one giant head.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live March 7th right now. We are sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday morning at, right now the location is in flux. Our bagel shop that we've been having it at for the last 7 years or so has closed up on us. So the last 2 weeks we've been at Seattle's Best on 5th and Lamar. Where we'll be next week, we're not too sure. We're still looking into that. We're kind of trying out some different places right now, see where we're going to be. But that's on Sunday mornings. If you go to our website, atheist-community.org, we will have an announcement and we'll post it there when we do know what the location is going to be. You might want to check there Saturday afternoon, something like that, and we should have information. Other regular things that we do, we have Godless Gamers every Monday night at the house of Russell Glasser. We play card games, board games, role-playing games, anything that kind of catches our fancy for the day. And that is every Monday night at 7 o'clock. If you, again, go to our website and write to the webmaster, he can give you information on that. Next, every Thursday night, we have happy hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex on the feeder road of I-35 just south of 183. That starts around 7:30 or so. People trickle in all night, though, so just keep an eye out for us. Usually a table pretty close to the entrance. A lot of fun, a lot of good discussion. Been having quite a few people turn up lately. I had been missing out on it for a long time, but just recently got back into it, so that's a good time. Last thing we have, our internet audio show, The Non-Prophets, is every other Saturday on atheistnetwork.com. It's a live MP3 stream. And the next one's going to be March 13th, this upcoming Saturday. We didn't have one yesterday. We're having one this upcoming week. That's hosted by Jeff D., Russell Glasser, and whoever decides to crash the house that day. That's an hour and a half of news analysis and just banter among atheists. It's a good time. It's definitely a good listen. Like I say, atheistnetwork.com, they have the link. If you go to our webpage, and you click on the Nonprofits link, they have a link there to the live audio stream. So if you have trouble with the Atheist Network site, you can get it from our site. Like I say, that is every other Saturday. Finally, we have the University Atheist and Agnostics. They are a registered student UT group, and they have meetings, I believe it's every Thursday. You'd want to check their website. It's www.uanda.com, I believe. And that's University Atheist and Agnostics. Like I say, every Thursday I think they have meetings. Check their website. They've got a schedule listed there of where the meeting's going to be. That's been going for, I believe, about 2 years now or so. It's a good, strong group. So. All right, as I say, it is Sunday, March 7th. We are live today. We have reruns on Tuesdays, on every Tuesday at 4:30, Channel 10, same time and place. But if you're watching us on Tuesday, do not call in. We will not pick up the phone. We will not answer. We will not do anything with you because we will be at home. It's live on Sundays. So anyway, that's it for announcements, I believe. So, welcome to the Atheist Experience. My co-host today is Don Baker.
Hello, good to see you.
He's been on a couple times now.
Yeah,
like I say,
we're starting, I guess, a rotating co-hosts situation now. Where
exactly.
There's 4 of us that are going to cycle through and bring some interesting material in, hopefully, and
exactly.
shake things up,
Yep.
keep things interesting.
Now that Martin's gone, we've had a couple people that come in and want to try it out. So we're, like I say, we're rotating out for a little while to see what happens. So should be good. But today, what do you have for us?
Well, today, you know, this same-sex marriage thing has become a very big issue in the news lately, and
tell me about it.
And you know, the atheists actually care about this sort of thing, and the reason atheists care about this is because of the sort of religious undertones about the sort of various movements going on related to gay marriage. That you know, there's a lot of sort of religious prohibitions against homosexuality and such. A lot of churches have decided that they don't want to do that, and not only that, they're getting involved in the political process to ban this sort of thing. And so the Atheist Community of Austin is actually working on a statement related to this proposed constitutional amendment that's coming up in the news, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the Atheist Community of Austin is basically saying that they haven't heard any secular arguments that they believe you know, make any sense against same-sex marriage, and you know, keeping with the principle of the separation of church and state, they want to sort of make a statement that the church shouldn't be imposing their will on other Americans, that sort of thing. So that's the gist of why atheists are interested in this, or think it's important. I'm going to switch now to some of the news that's happened in regard to this issue. Things have really sort of bubbled up and become kind of front burner sorts of things. Back in June of 2003, there was this Lawrence versus the state of Texas ruling in the Supreme Court, which struck down the Texas sodomy law and indeed all sodomy laws throughout the United States. And this sort of the Supreme Court sort of banned or reaffirmed the rights of individuals to private consensual sexual acts, and this, I think, really sort of turned up some of the speed, because there was a big concern at this time whether or not this would be the harbinger of same-sex marriage coming up. And indeed, a little later on, just recently, February 2nd, 2004, the Massachusetts Supreme Court heard a case within their state that, and they decided that nothing short of same-sex marriage would pass the constitutional muster of equal protection. So it's an equal protection issue that's part of our Constitution. We say that you know, any law you have should apply equally to everybody, and one can make a case that gays are excluded. So there's a big issue. One of the things that's going on right now, the reason this has gotten so intense is, okay, well, we have Massachusetts that's going to effectively start allowing gay marriages, I think in May, and the amount of time it would take them to make a constitutional amendment to change their constitution to specifically disallow this would be several years down the road. So gay marriage is a fact. It's going to happen. People can go to Massachusetts and get married. So this begs the question of whether other states need to honor those marriages. Okay, so if we look again at the Constitution, we have the full faith and credit clause of the United States that says that if one state makes a law, particularly with regard to marriage and a lot of other things, that other states need to sort of recognize that, and we can't have sort of completely disjoint laws. And yet we have that, because we have, over the last 5 or 6 years, we have the federal government and a number of states, quite a number of states, enacting the so-called DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act laws, that say if anybody else allows same-sex unions, we're not going to accept them. So it's specifically against what most people would think would be the Constitution, and in fact these things have yet to be tested in the courts. So all of this tension is building, and then on February 24th, which is very recently, Bush called for a constitutional ban on same-sex marriages because such weddings, quote, threaten the most fundamental institution of civilization. And then he had another quote where he says, marriage cannot be severed from its cultural, religious, and natural roots without weakening the good influence of society. I have a little trouble parsing that, but very often that's a problem with what he says. Okay, so basically he has decided, you know, this is a hot button issue. This is something that he's going to run with in his candidacy. So for re-election. So that's coming up, and then all of a sudden we have a bunch of different jurisdictions throughout the United States. I think initially it was San Francisco started giving out gay marriage licenses, And then a whole bunch of other cities are doing this. So it's like a big flood. It was a dam is sort of getting ready to burst, and we're starting to see all the little leaks coming out. And we have cities like little cities in New York and New Mexico and Oregon and such. And these people who are issuing these marriage licenses are basically saying the Constitution says that any bans are invalid, and so there's a big question of whether or not these jurisdictions can go against the state laws in interpreting the constitutional law of the United States. So that's a big issue. But
from my understanding, though, is Massachusetts the only one that is legally issuing them?
That's right.
Now?
We have Vermont, who a while back is allowing what are called
something like unions? Or...
Yeah, domestic, they're like civil unions,
okay.
is what they're not called marriages.
Okay.
But
it's the same thing legally, I assume.
Well, actually, no, there's quite a bit of difference, and let's go ahead and talk about that. We have of course, the religious marriage where you go into the church, you go down the aisle,
yeah.
and you have a priest or a minister or whatever blessing it and such, and that's sort of one sphere, one thing called marriage, and pretty much everything I'll say today has nothing to do with that. We're talking about the civil institution of marriage, which is where you go and get a marriage license, which is the only thing that the states recognize is this more or less legal thing.
Okay.
So that's something I would call civil marriage, and I think today that will be what we'll talk about when we're talking about marriage is the civil marriage.
Okay.
But then there's sort of shades of gray down from there. We have the notion of civil unions, which are Vermont, for example, has civil unions. They allow same-sex couples to be joined this way, and they get some benefits from the state, but they're not recognized in the United States. And if they go out of their state, it wouldn't.
Okay.
The full faith and credit clause wouldn't even necessarily apply.
Okay.
So it's definitely marriage light. And then even sort of further down the scale, we have a notion of domestic partnership registrations, which confers some rights in certain cities, but that's not even really on the map. So so what we're really talking about is marriage where we have two people coming together and wanting to get the full kit and caboodle of,
yes.
of rights and privileges and responsibilities. No one's trying to shirk that. Okay, so so Bush has made these claims that marriage is a sacred institution. He used that term, and talked about the sanctity of marriage, which are basically religious terms, right?
Yes.
So Bush is certainly welcome to his opinion, but we have the notion of separation of church and state in the United States, and what somebody believes shouldn't apply to somebody else. It's simply that simple. So, so what does this marriage amendment look like? Well, we have, it will likely change over time as it gets argued and such. But there's sort of a straw man thing called the Federal Marriage Amendment, proposed by Representative Marilyn Musgrave from Colorado. And I'll go ahead and read it to you. It says, "Marriage in the United States shall consist of only the union of a man and a woman. Neither this Constitution nor the Constitution of any state, nor state or federal law, shall be construed to require that marital status of the legal or the legal incidence thereof be conferred on unmarried couples or groups." Okay, so this is a proposed constitutional amendment that basically says marriage is this, and none of the benefits of marriage can be applied in any other situation than marriage.
Okay.
And one of the very troubling things about this is this clause of the legal incidence thereof, and some people wonder whether, well, if I wanted to, set up a will between me and my partner, for example, would that be banned by this law? That sort of thing, because flipping it around, you have rights of survivorship that come along with marriage. So if you try to reproduce those rights via other means, does this strike that down? Which is very disconcerting.
I mean, that would have to be so far-reaching that it couldn't possibly be backed up in any way. I mean, I can write a will to leave everything I have to my brother.
Sure.
There's no legal problem against that, so why couldn't I write
Right.
one if I had a partner?
So a lot of people have rightly concluded that this clause is flawed. Okay, it doesn't make sense. But I think what's interesting is that it's sort of a vindictive sort of a thing. That not only are we going to define marriage as this, but you can't have anything that looks like it.
Yeah.
Is the sort of sentiment here. Okay. So we've talked about definitions. We've talked about some of the news items. By the way, in today's Statesman, there's a very nice little article in the Insight section on gay marriage, and I recommend taking a look at that, and we might borrow some material from that later on. Okay, so what I want to talk about now is that there's three arguments that are often used against this marriage issue. There's three sort of arguments that the people who are opposed to gay marriage use, and these arguments are basically procreation, that marriage is a means of furthering our species, and it's the foundation of society, those sorts of arguments. There's the argument that marriage has a certain amount of traditions with it, and we shouldn't be messing with those traditions because they've served us well. And then there's a number of religious arguments one can make. And I wanted to talk about each of these very briefly, or try to make it briefly. So on the procreation and foundation of society issue, yes, marriage has been associated with raising families, but humanity has had no trouble procreating, and procreation is sort of a fundamental urge that same-sex weddings will neither harm nor constitutional bans will help. It's something that's a fact. It's
inside or outside of marriage, we are going to reproduce.
We're going to reproduce, and then if you look at the world population, which is standing now at about 6.3 billion people, and it's doubled in my lifetime, one wonders, if we should be, doing this procreation, nonstop here, folks, because we're going to run out of food, we're going to run out of space, we're going to run out of all sorts of things.
And what was actually interesting is we have an email list where we get on, we discuss things amongst ourselves. A Christian actually came onto that list, and one of his arguments, and I'm trying to figure out, maybe I read it wrong or something like that, but this is the only way I could read it, is that if we allow gay marriage, then the population of the world will go down because, two men getting together can't have a kid. Two women getting together can't have a kid, at least not without help, basically. Now, the only problem I have with that is if we allow gay marriage, I'm not turning gay. I have no urge to turn gay and start dating other men.
Yeah, there seems to be this underlying assumption that we have to hinder this, otherwise everybody will go doing it.
Exactly. You allow gay marriage, everybody turns gay. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it.
So if these people really believe this, why that the purpose of marriage is for procreation, why don't we have bans on infertile couples from marrying, right? Or quotas that by the time you're married 2 years you have to produce 2 kids because
mandatory.
That's right.
Yeah, mandatory divorce at menopause.
Right, exactly, those sorts of things. So another thing to say that gays and lesbians are fertile. We can make children, and about 1/10 of gays and lesbians are parents, often through previous marriages. Although there are situations where gays are adopting or having children via artificial insemination, those sorts of things. So if marriage is to aid in parenting and the raising of children and providing a stable environment for those children, what about the children of gay people? Aren't those children important too? And why should they be penalized? So that's one thing. Another, I think, on this issue of the foundation of society, you can argue that the foundation of society, because procreation is not going to be changed, not going to be affected by this. The real foundation of society is legal contracts. Is the contracts where we agree to do something, we provide each other goods and services, and so on. And there's a law system to penalize us when we don't do that. And I would claim that these legal contracts are the foundation of society. And what business is it of anybody to deny adults who can make up their mind the ability to enter into a legal contract, which is marriage.
Yeah.
So, and if anything, I think that an amendment like this is a danger to society, just because it's getting in the way of the natural course of legal contracts and such.
Well, it's also just a basic fact that it's one of the very few amendments that we've ever had that takes away the right of a certain people.
Yes.
Again, most of the amendments are what you can do and what you
have expanded on our liberties.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. They've ensured liberties.
And the only other amendment that did that was the Prohibition, which was, basically everybody considered it a huge disaster. There was a temperance movement at the time to not drink alcohol, and it took hold, and they changed the Constitution, and then
we see how well that one worked out.
Yeah, that's a huge crime rate, huge problem, and speakeasies and all that good stuff. And made for an interesting history, but wouldn't want to live through that. Gun runners, and I think NASCAR actually got their start then, because the fast cars were needed to outrun the police.
Really?
Yeah, Prohibition was
that's funny. I haven't heard
genesis of NASCAR. So anyway, okay. Switching gears now on the tradition argument. The marriage has had a very, very interesting tradition, or not tradition, a very interesting history, and I would claim that it's evolved quite a bit over the years. There's a very good book on the subject, and there's many good books, but I'll pull up this one. This is called "What Is Marriage For?" By E.J. Graff. She is a lesbian author, but she's not necessarily got a big agenda or whatever. And she argues that marriage has changed a lot over the years. It's gone from something that is basically a property ownership. The wife to be was basically a property, and it was marriage was a financial transaction between the in-laws and the husband to be, and there was a dowry involved usually, so money transfer and so on, and that's what it usually used to be, and today what we have is something more based on equality. Women and men generally have pretty equal rights in marriage, although there's still some remnants of some of the steps along the way. And one of her arguments is that same-sex marriage is basically the ultimate conclusion of this equality between the people in the marriage partnership. So if we take a look at some of the biblical traditions, since many of the arguments against marriage are based in the Bible and based in religion, it's certainly worth taking a look at those histories. There's some very interesting things going on. We have, in biblical times, women were considered men's property. Men had multiple wives and concubines. The wives needed to be virgins at the time of the transaction. We certainly don't have any of those sorts of things now. Moses himself had a child with a slave, because at that time the assumption was, well, the woman didn't contribute anything to the child. I mean, the woman was just the bakery, right? And
wow,
the man had the seed, and the seed, germinated in the wife, and that, and she was a non-participant. So that was the sort of mindset, and that's how what people believed in biblical times. What you see in the sort of marriage ceremony and such is we see that many societies around this time that basically a couple would come together and give a public declaration that we were married. We want to be married. We are married. And so on. Everybody would raise their brew or whatever and say hooray, and that would be it. But the point is that in biblical times and long before, marriages had a lot to do with the two people coming together and deciding this sort of thing themselves, or it was basically a contract between the two people.
Okay, so marriage was not something that religion introduced.
Absolutely.
Religion did not come along and say, okay, we should have men and women getting together.
That's really where I'm going with this, right? Yeah. Is that in many ways religion was sort of an afterthought.
Okay.
So we have this notion of a public declaration. So there's this sort of tension between, okay, we have two people deciding to do something together, but there's also this public part of it where maybe some rights and maybe some recognition goes on, and people need to know whether other people are married because of the taboos against infidelity, those sorts of things.
Okay.
So, and keep in mind that around this time that women in marriage were basically kind of indentured servants. They were sort of life partners of the men. They helped them out, and they were just sort of there to sort of make things go. And the early Christians spoke out against marriage for various reasons. Partly because of this indentured servitude issue, which needed to be spoke out against, so that's good. The Apostle Paul discouraged marriage because it conflicted with the man's love of God. You know, it's a conflict of interest issue. Are you going to love your wife or are you going to love God?
Sort of like the Catholic priests. Can't get married, that takes away your love from God.
Right, right. So, and St. Augustine promoted celibacy. Celibacy was kind of considered a big thing in the early Christian church. St. Augustine said, I don't see what other help women would be to a man if the purpose of generating was eliminated. Okay. So at this time, the purpose of marriage was for procreation, for fidelity, avoiding fornication, which, you know, basically it's okay to mess around if it's only with one person, because any of that sex is bad. Okay, but if it's for procreation, that's okay. And second down, and then the third tier was the permanent bond between the couple, and that was actually celebrated, and so on. It wasn't until the 1200s that marriage was actually considered a holy sacrament by the Catholic Church, and it was mostly because of the mutual the caretaking and bond of the couple. Later, Protestants came up with the idea that this institution of marriage and being a holy thing, and that needed to be regulated and prescribed and all this. So there was this religion thing came kind of a latecomer to
this natural love that evolves among people, that they decide to spend their lives together. We have to regulate.
Yes. Yeah, and the Catholic Church is somewhat infamous for selling indulgences, which for various purposes. But one purpose was, well, you know, if you're going to marry somebody and they're a relative, that's taboo. That's not a good thing. And you had communities that were basically just familial tribes. They lived together for a long time, and basically everybody was everybody's relative to some extent.
Yeah.
And so you had to pay the church some money to get an indulgence, which is basically for them to overlook this problem or to bless the marriage. So that was kind of a little bit of business for them. So so some of the innovations that happened here, I think, with religion was that religion began to take control of the institution of marriage, or began to insert itself, and you know, for the Middle Ages, Catholic marriage is a sacrament to be instituted in order to have children legitimately and to raise them with the fear of God. Was another little interesting little quote. So there's an innovation here that, okay, well, rather than going out and conquering the world to get converts and such, why don't we just manufacture them? Why don't we just have our current believers make new believers? And if you take a long-term view, that works out very well.
Christian factories.
Christian factories, and all of the Catholic weddings I've been to, even today, this sort of theme goes on. All of the Catholic weddings I've been to have said, you know, as part of our blessing to you from God, you have to go out and make lots of children and raise them in the church. And I don't know if that, you know, is something that you've seen in Catholic weddings or not. Okay.
I haven't noticed that all that much, actually, but haven't been to too many weddings myself, so.
Okay. But on the homosexuality issue, it turns out that the Catholic Church between 500 and 1500 actually did have same-sex unions and partnerships. And there's been a big debate of whether those were really considered weddings or whether they were just, you know, two buddies that wanted to I don't know, get together, I don't know. But, and you can imagine who's on whose side. So there's actually a book on this subject called Same-Sex Unions in Pre-Modern Europe by John Boswell, which I recommend you read if you're interested in that. Okay, so more recently now, turning up the clock, we have some other changes that go on. We have the fall of the prohibitions against marriage outside one's religious denomination. It used to be very much taboo for Catholics and Jews to marry, that sort of thing. In 1967, the Supreme Court struck down states' laws restricting mixed-race marriages. So even as late as 40 years ago, we have some big changes, and religion was very much an issue at that time as well. So to conclude on this tradition issue, we have marriage really has changed a lot, and in many more ways than I've even scratched the surface of. It's very interesting sort of history. The institution moving away from property rights towards more equality and more focused on love, a little bit less on child rearing, although that's a very important part of it. And your definition of what's a traditional marriage depends on your perspective. It depends on how far back you want to look, what religious tradition you come from, what age of the religion, and so on. So with that, I want to shift gears and talk about the third sort of argument against same-sex marriage, and that is these religious arguments. And as we've said earlier, concerning civil marriage, religion really has no part in it in the United States. We have a secular government, and although we do have a religious minority of Christians, a majority of Christians, it's really not their decision. It's not their decision. So there are many religions that actually do perform same-sex blessings and such, and I think that if marriages were allowed, these religions would be performing same-sex marriages. So I think it's wrong for one religion to sort of trump another religion. That's very much against this sort of freedom of religion that we have in our country. So
I'm kind of curious, basically, as to how it came about that gay marriage is not something that we already allow. I mean, there is no law that says marriage should be, again, a white woman and a white man. And then in 1960 you said, okay, fine, one of them can be a different race. And so we kind of changed the law, and now we're going to change it again. There are no laws as far as I know.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that the laws are sort of chasing the culture, right? The culture has had these norms, about maybe taboos against mixed race marriages,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden people started doing that, and then they sort of said, oh, well, what are we going to? What does this mean legally? So the laws are sort of lagging behind the reality of what's going on. I think that's part of the deal there.
Because I think if you look at a lot of laws right now, they can be interpreted in such that pretty much any two people getting together would be fine. There aren't that many that restrict it. Mm-hmm. There are age restrictions out there, but I think that's really about it. I don't know. Are there laws out there that say two men cannot be married?
I think in some states it is very clear about the genders of the people involved, and I think that's what happened in Massachusetts. Is the way their constitution was written didn't mention specific genders.
Okay.
So it turned out to be easier to challenge the law there and say, what about this?
Okay.
And in other states, it's much more clear. And in fact, what's happening is there are a number of states that are actually actively going and changing their laws in order to make this very explicit.
Yes. Okay.
So again, we're seeing the chasing going on.
All right.
So I have a couple more points I want to make, and then we'll go to the callers, I guess, unless you had some other things.
No, but just quick notice. This is a live call-in show. We will be getting the calls in a little bit. Don still has a little bit to go over. If you want to give us a call and give some opinions, our phone number 477-2288. And like I said, we'll be getting to that in a few minutes. So, continue.
Okay. Well, another thing that came up in the news recently is Bush has proposed a $1.5 billion initiative for strengthening marriage. And although some of the things he's proposing is admirable, some of the other things he's proposing would be something like giving subsidies to poor women to stay in marriages or to get married. And one has to wonder, if marriage is a sacred institution, why is somebody trying to go in and meddle with it using the government's powers? So it's
what's the government for?
It doesn't quite add up as far as I can tell. So I think the real reason for the marriage amendment and a lot of this is simply political gain. That the Constitution is being used as a political device, in part to aid in the re-election of Bush. It's actually this constitutional amendment is completely at odds with the Republican Party's stance on federalism, which says that the state should regulate marriage and other things, that the state should have a lot of power and the federal government should stay out of these issues. So this is very much at odds with that. I see that the same groups that are really pushing this constitutional amendment are often, in many cases, the same groups that are marketing hatred of homosexuals, that are selling fear and raising money based on fear. And the deal there is that having an enemy gives you power. Okay, if you are fighting against someone and you make them out to be really bad, then you can get support, you can get money, that sort of thing. And by gays becoming more normalized and becoming sort of a seamless part of the United States, they sort of disappear. They can no longer be labeled as the enemy. Married gays cannot be labeled as promiscuous deviates because they're out mowing their lawns or whatever, ho hum. So and I think it's, as an American, I think it's really horrible. This has become such a front burner issue when there are much bigger issues like the economy and the jobs and education that really deserve some time.
Which is what a lot of people are saying. This is the main reason for this coming up and being such a big issue, is because those things aren't exactly, our economy, while picking up, is not exactly chugging along really healthy yet.
Right.
So let's try and divert attention away.
Right.
To something that we can control, hopefully.
So some concrete suggestions are maybe we should respect the Constitution a little bit more. We should keep religion out of other people's lives. And as kind of a funny suggestion, maybe people should become an atheist. We have a little table that I pulled from a book called The Fundamentals of Extremism. And if you guys can put up the table, that'd be great. This is a list of divorce rates for persons who are currently or previously been divorced by religious belief or affiliation. We're having a little trouble with our graphic.
There it is.
There's our graphic. So we're looking at divorce rates, and basically this came from originally this came from a study titled "Christians are more likely to experience divorce than are non-Christians." And basically you can see that the divorce rates are pretty high among various divisions, but down here at the bottom we have atheists and agnostics with a lower divorce rate. So maybe we should all become atheists and agnostics and have better divorce statistics. If we want to save marriage, we can do that.
Promote atheist marriages.
But I think the sort of underlying thing here is that religious marriage and all of the baggage that comes along with it actually adds some weight to a marriage that sort of needs to be shed. And that's, I think, what you're seeing in this table.
Well,
thank you, guys.
I think a lot of religion kind of promotes that marriage is the expected thing to do. When you're young in a very Bible-believing, strict church, when the girl turns 16 years old, it's already kind of like, so who are you looking at now?
Oh, yeah.
It starts very young. You hit 25 and you're not married, you're an old maid.
Right.
And so, you've got to be married. There must be something seriously wrong. And so when you're kind of pressured to a certain extent into marriage, it's very likely that you're just going to, take whoever comes along. 5 years later, it doesn't work out so well, you get divorced.
Right.
Whereas atheist families or, less religious families don't have such a pressure. And so if I don't get married till I'm 30, not a big deal.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay, well, maybe this is a good time to start taking callers. We have a couple folks on the line.
All right. Again, phone number 477-2288. We are live right now. It is March 7th, and it's Sunday. Like I say, we have reruns on Tuesday at 4:30, but those are reruns. So, anyway, we have got Joe. What you got for us?
Well, I totally agree with y'all that this marriage constitutional amendment is totally a Bush trying to get his base back, who he's sort of angered with the issue of immigration.
Exactly. There's a lot of other stuff going on right now that doesn't look so good.
Right, right. And that, if people really understood the history of what marriage traditionally was, I don't think as many straight people would be married either.
Yeah.
But actually, I have another question, which is kind of off topic, but
that's fine.
Hoping y'all could field it. what would you say to someone who would suggest, because I'm not really an atheist, but I'm not a theist either,
Okay.
that because of the way our perceptual accoutrements work in our brain, in our neurology, that whether you're a theist or an atheist, you will gather evidence based on your empirical perceptions to prove which position you take.
Okay. Meaning evidence of that you have seen, felt, touched, read, whatever.
Right. Well, evidence that atheism is the correct position or theism is the correct position based on, filtering of perceptions.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There's part of our brain that actually, and this is an evolutionary adaptation, there's part of our brain that invents stories about what has been seen and so on. And this part of the brain has been called the confabulator by a researcher, and I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name, but it's something like Gazinga or. But he's a researcher that basically says, okay, well we have a benefit by figuring out cause and effect in certain situations, and this part of the brain is going to make up a story, and in effect the story becomes the reality or our perception of the reality. And absolutely, the culture that you're immersed in has a big impact on what those stories are. So. We don't see miracles of Jesus in India, for example, because Christianity is just not that prevalent there, and absolutely the culture factors into it.
Okay.
Right. Well, doesn't that also make all dogmatic positions untenable, basically? Even atheism, because if your perceptual units automatically filter your experience into whatever story you're trying to tell yourself, then doesn't that make not even agnosticism, but sort of a suspended belief, period? Like not believing anything, just sort of drifting through the world without any clear ideology or dogma which to concretize your experience.
It's typically not a good idea to have any beliefs that are set in stone, and this is my idea on religion, God, or politics, or whatever, and have that completely unchanging. Instead, what you should try and do, and again, it's kind of human nature. It's hard not to have concrete ideas that are really tough to change. But ideally, what you should be doing is looking at the evidence for what you have. We don't have any real evidence that there is a God, and so we choose not to believe. Now, if something came out tomorrow...
I think he's asking a deeper question.
Well, what I'm actually wanting to know is that non-local quantum events sort of prove that information can travel between individual particles without constraints of time-space. Okay. So that doesn't suggest that there's a God necessarily, but that some sort of conscious...
Well, not consciousness has a lot of baggage that goes along.
Word.
Well, that's a big word right there.
Right.
Basically, what that shows is that we don't know it all just yet.
Right. Understood.
we're still learning.
Yep.
We know quite a bit about physics. We know a lot. We can get rockets off to
And there are deep limits to what we can perceive. Right. We can't perceive things on the very small scales. We can't perceive things on the very large scales. We are in a sense slaves to our cultural upbringing. And it's good to be aware that does give us some limitations. Yeah. So, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome.
Yeah, like I say, we evolved to tell the difference between mice and lions, and dust and planets start getting a little bit more abstract. Right. Don't have to deal with them every day.
Okay.
But did you have anything else for us?
That was it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Sean. All right. Who do we have now? Okay, Mike, what you got for us?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I've got a couple things to talk about. One is the gay marriage, but first, at the end of last week's show, you're talking about the Passion of Christ and how that a lot of Christians are using this for justification for hating Jews, because Jews supposedly caused Jesus' death.
Yeah.
And that has always confused me and always bewildered me, because on the one hand, they say the death of Christ is the best thing that's ever happened, because his death
exactly
all the laws for sins.
Yeah,
But if the Jews did kill him, shouldn't they be thanking the Jews?
exactly. I've always kind of had questions about that.
Right, maybe the whole thing was predestined by God, so the Jews are
Exactly.
irrelevant to the whole question.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
according to the Bible, Jesus came down, his whole sole purpose was to die.
Yeah, someone had to do it. So.
Yes, if no one did, is he going to scourge himself and put nails in himself and hang himself? I mean, Christians should be thanking Jews.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
anyway.
a friend of mine who is on the nonprofits every now and then, every now and then he's on some of these Christian news groups and such, and Ask an Atheist and whatnot. And sometimes he'll get with the Christian and ask them, okay, let's assume that you could actually travel back in time and see Jesus as he was on the cross. Would you take him down? Most of the time, they answer no, because he had to die. He had to save humanity, and so
That's very telling, isn't it?
it's very sad. But yes, I have to let nature take its course, and I have to let him die. Okay, fine. Next part of the question. One of the Roman torturers, or the guys climbing up on the ladder to nail in the nails, is sick that day. Do you help out? And it just goes back. They lost one of the nails. You just happen to have one. Would you hand it over? And it keeps going back. And so if you're gonna hate the Jews, there's that's not good.
Yeah, that's what they use primarily for their excuse. I mean, I think they hate them just because of their own prejudice.
Exactly.
And they use that as an excuse to do it.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just like the gay marriage thing. I mean, they use religion. I think religion is the primary basis for them to not allow gay marriage.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And
definitely.
I think the quickest way to kill this talk of an amendment is to tack on saying, okay, we will also no longer allow divorce.
Yeah.
That's the quickest way to kill it, because again, the Bible doesn't allow divorce.
Right.
Yeah.
How many Americans would go for that?
Yeah. Or
And
just
if they truly want to save the family, save the kids,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's more important than not allowing gays.
if they want to promote that the secular, again, the only real secular argument I've heard, as bad as it is that a marriage is for families. It's so that you can have children and raise them.
Yeah.
And so, again, if you want to follow that logic, then fine. We're going to have a new amendment that says gays can't be married. If you're infertile, you cannot be married.
Yeah.
If you're past menopause, you cannot be married.
Yeah.
And just tack on all these different things on it, it will not pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've made a good point in
You cannot
that.
get divorced.
What was that? Sorry?
I think the quickest way is just tack on you cannot get a divorce.
Right, and
Yeah.
you've pointed out a big issue, and that is that very often the marketing doesn't match the real beliefs, the
Exactly.
reality of it. And I
Exactly.
think you've pointed at that very well with that issue.
That's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Sure,
Sean. All right, and we have got Jason. What do you have for us?
Hello?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, actually it's Vincent. That's what the
Vincent?
that's what the hesitation was about.
Oh,
Okay, sorry.
Well, yeah, I love the show. Thanks a lot for you guys doing this and taking
for
all
watching.
the strange calls and bearing all the frustration. I'm an atheist, graduated ancient history, which studying Greco-Roman history I was in school for like 8 years. So it's pretty frustrating to see all this flap about the passion.
Yes.
And one of my critiques, of course, is that Pilate would have been speaking Greek to the crowd, not Latin.
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, and the Latin that they use, actually, and that's probably because they use Italian actors, it's the Italian pronunciation, which didn't come around to the Middle Ages. But you guys don't want to hear that. I have a whole lot of nitpicks.
Not too many people
There
caught
are
on
bigger fish
that
to
one.
fry than those, but yes, those are
But yeah,
worth pointing out.
if they're going to try for the realism, you might as well go all the way.
Exactly. And, of course, I have to say the Jews didn't run Judea at the time any more than the Iraqis are running Iraq right now, or the Japanese ran Japan in 1950. They were an occupied people, and if Jesus had been convicted of a religious crime, he would have been stoned. Certainly they would have gone to get Pilate's permission, maybe, but the Romans didn't have anything to do with that. They didn't understand, and they didn't really care about religious controversies. They just wanted political control, so they could have economic control of the territory. And the reason that Jesus was crucified was strictly because Jesus created a disturbance in the temple, and his movement posed a threat to Roman occupation. That's why he was crucified. And crucifixion was strictly a Roman punishment, strictly reserved for non-Roman citizens who were convicted of some kind of treasonous act toward the emperor.
Okay, so it was more of a political thing. So it was more of a political thing, and he was a troublemaker against the ruling power. Rather than
to be fair, it may have been the case that Caiaphas really had these his own personal and religious interests to try to get Jesus executed, and he played the right kind of tune for Pilate to interest Pilate in the execution. That may have been true.
Okay.
But really, I guess I would say it's the consensus among scholars is that the fact that Jesus was crucified that's the primary piece of evidence that he was guilty of a political crime in the thought of the Romans. It's even in the Gospels where Pilate writes on the little titulum that goes on the crucifix itself.
Yeah.
He says, Jesus the Nazarene, the King of the Jews. Not the Son of God, not any of the other claims Jesus made, but the one that ticked Pilate off was King of the Jews.
Yeah.
Whether that was a spiritual king or not, Pilate didn't like anyone using that title because the Romans were very, very concerned about monarchic ideas rising again among the Jews. They wanted the Jews to look to the high priest, and that was it, and not look to any kind of real secular power anymore because they were supposed to be a conquered people. Anyway, that's my beef about that. Really, one thing I was calling about was the homosexual marriage thing is driving me nuts, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can see the fear on everyone's faces here, and I think it goes back to the fact that I've had devout Muslim friends, I've had devout Christian friends. They all get really tied into a knot about homosexuality, I think, because they can't really explain it. They can't explain why it's there.
Yes.
Because if you're a materialist evolutionist who looks at human beings as products of biology, it makes complete sense and it doesn't bother you because we see homosexuality in the animal world among certain kinds of chimps. Whether it comes about through genetics or through environmental causes, it's there. It's something that appears to be natural, and I can't think of any reason why it's horrible. And if then you add that to my political ideas, which is that the government doesn't have any business telling people who can get married and who can't.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, if homosexuals want to get married, fine, So I think really what this is that Christianity, what we're seeing here is part of the fear here that Christianity and a lot of these kind of belief systems, they can't explain the world they see around them, and it makes them very afraid. I've told a Christian, tried to explain to a Christian one time, actually I wrote a 60-page Platonic dialogue to this effect, which is that as an atheist and a Christian arguing over what Christianity makes sense logically and morally. And one of the points that the atheist kept hammering on is that Christianity can't explain evil. It really can't.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, why evil is such a fearful thing, and they have to sort of throw it all on this being called Satan, but they can never really explain why Satan has the motives he does.
Exactly.
If you're a materialist evolutionist, or if you follow evolutionary psychology, you know that murder, rape, greed, all these horrible things that go on in our society, they're there because in some contexts, usually in the past, they did serve a purpose towards survival.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in the context of wanting to live in a peaceful society where you kind of leave everyone alone and let them do their thing, it becomes a big problem. But at least you know where it came from in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's really my point. The last little point I want to make is about y'all's graphic. I'm a married atheist, so I guess I would fit in the bottom category there. I do think that maybe one reason atheists have a slightly lower divorce rate is because there aren't as pressure to get married.
Exactly.
The religious people I've had, there's this pressure.
Exactly.
Especially if they want to, get out there and have sex. There's this idea that you need to be married before you do that.
Exactly.
And so
Right.
they grab the first person they think is the one, and they get married to that person, usually too young.
Yeah.
And usually not toward any purpose. It's just to be married, just to play house, and that usually falls apart.
Yes,
and
exactly.
My wife and I, we got married after a long span of dating because we decided
Exactly.
we wanted to have kids. We thought it'd be good to unite our finances and whatnot. It was a really practical decision.
And you obviously spent a lot of time thinking about those things, and rather than being pushed along by somebody else's expectations.
Yeah, expectations and hormones. So.
Well, I don't want to take over your show, but thanks a lot for what you do.
Thank you for your comments.
Really happy that there's something like this on the air.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think, like I say, there's a lot of different reasons why the religious side doesn't like the idea of gay marriage. It can't be explained all that well. That's one factor. One factor is tradition, and there are several things. But I think for a lot of the mainstream people, it's also just, unfortunately, an ick factor.
Yeah.
It's different from what I do, therefore, that can't be good.
Well, other people's sexuality naturally, I think, make folks uncomfortable.
Exactly, especially in this country.
Right.
Look at Janet Jackson. I mean,
Right.
everybody had to flip out over that one.
Or Michael Jackson. But we won't go there.
Yeah, no, please not. Please not. Please not.
So, yeah,
All right.
Anyway.
Let's see. Again, our phone number, 477-2288. Got about another half an hour left. So again, if you got any questions, any comments, call us up, let us know, and we'll.
if not, I got a
Talk
couple
to you.
other goodies we can throw in here.
Okay. I also have a couple things I could go over if
Okay.
need be. But for right now, we have got Jay. How you doing?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Pretty good. What you got for us?
I myself am not an atheist. I'm actually a Catholic Christian,
Okay.
and just in trying to understand what it is that you. I mean, it's obvious what you don't believe. I guess I'm trying to figure out what it is that you do believe. Is the Atheist Experience? This I might mention that this is the first time I've ever seen the show.
Okay.
Is the whole Atheist Experience pretty much just a live and let live attitude?
Not exactly. Atheism, just to get out of the way, atheism is simply lack of belief in a God. Period, full stop. That's the end of the paragraph. Anything else, as in political ideology and beliefs in the supernatural and stuff like that, that's all free game. Typically, though, usually atheists are very naturalistic in their outlook. There's no supernatural forces, there's no life after death, no psychic powers, anything like that. Morality, for instance, is a factor that we are a social species. We have to live together. You know, that's just what we have evolved to do, is live together in groups. In order for that to work out and not be a problem, we have found that it's better if we can work together to do things. If I don't steal your stuff and you don't steal my stuff, we're both a little bit happier at the end of the day, rather than one of us tries to club the other one over the head and take it and run. Again, there are actions have consequences, and we realize that if we're going to work together, the world's going to be a better place to live in.
Yeah, I have something to add to that. And
Okay.
I would think a lot of atheists ascribe to what's called secular humanism or humanism, which is basically a creed that emphasizes a lot of what Ashley just said. That we are, we're all here together. There's nobody going to take care of us. We're going to have to take care of ourselves. Reason and science and technology are the best ways to do that. So those are some of the themes in secular humanism.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what about when technology and medicine and what have you? What happens when that fails? I mean, you obviously can't
there's no assumption that it's going to work all the time. There's no assumption that all the problems are going to be solved. So
okay, granted. So take the things that have happened, events and just chicken soup for the soul stories that just pretty much can't be explained. People coming back to life when they were basically, their fate was sealed by whatever doctor was overseeing them. Things of that nature. I mean, does that not at all sway the atheist mind into thinking, well, if science said no, then obviously somebody else said yes.
Well, science doesn't. We don't know it all. We don't have all the answers to every question ever asked. Again, medical science, for instance, we know a fair bit about how the body works, but we don't know it all. from what we have seen in the past, once you get cancer to this level, that's pretty much the end of it. But again, we don't know everything. And so, you know, things do happen, we do learn. And like I say, that's what it is. But again, we can see that there are natural things that happen in these cases. It's usually not just that the only way that could have happened was God must have done it. There's usually some different explanation that perhaps we haven't found yet. But again, until we have evidence for a God, we're just going to have to assume that there is some kind of natural explanation to what we see.
Okay.
So.
Also, I guess this is like the last thing I had a question on was, I would assume that because of the stance that you take in with the gay marriages and so forth, and pretty much believing that we need to work together and not worry about the frivolous things and, you know, things that don't really contribute to the advancement of society or whatever.
Well, now, let me make sure I'm reading you here right. Are you saying, I mean, the advancement of society is a very important thing. Again, we have to live in society. We have to make rules that are going to help us do that. So that is a pretty important factor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if maybe I misheard you or something.
I'm not saying that
Yeah.
was...
Well, go ahead and finish your
thing.
point.
I'm talking about, you know, how you were talking about there's bigger political issues that need to be looked at.
Okay.
Other than, you know, people's lifestyles or...
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did make a statement like that.
Okay. Apologize for that.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, well, take the Catholic faith, for instance. They fund a number of charity organizations. You know, Mother Teresa probably, you know, as far as in the public eye, it was one of the biggest humanists in recent history.
Yeah.
And she did it all in the name of God.
Yeah.
So, as an atheist, do you at all hold any kind of prejudice against her because of why she did it so much as the fact, you know, that she did it at all?
Not at all.
I can take this.
Parent issues here.
Let me answer your question, setting Mother Teresa aside. There are people that do wonderful things, and you know, if they do them for reasons that we disagree with, then that's okay. You know, I guess the answer is what matters. You know, I think that a person would be more effective. A person is more effective if they know what they're doing and they know the nature of their task and what their goals are, rather than get to them by some accident. Okay, so that's how I would respond to that. On the Mother Teresa issue, there's a lot to say about her. Some things I've read have been less than flattering about her, that she you know, basically went into India and said, look at all the squalor, we can use this to get money to fix this problem, but then she ended up, you know, storing a lot away in her bank account, and you know, she basically glorified suffering, you know, and so there's some rather unflattering things published by folks who actually went and investigated what she was doing. So my answer here is or my point here is that, you know, be careful to separate the myth from the reality.
Well, the reality is that, you know, she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. You know, so obviously there were other people out there that were not Catholic and that were not Christians that recognized her for, you know, her labor of love, you know, as she referred to it. So, I mean, if any one person wants to, they can find dirt on anyone. You know, I mean, supposedly Martin Luther King Jr. was
he had a shady side too. Yes.
Yeah, he had a shady side to him. You know, he was an adulterer or whatever, but. You know, the fact of the matter is that, you know, the organizations that are in place for the betterment and for the advancement of society and in helping the less fortunate, the poor, the hungry, you know, a lot of those organizations, and I would venture to say the majority of these organizations are religiously based. So in order to I don't know. I guess the only thing that I'm asking here is like,
And
you know, do you like continue to take a stance against these people because of why they're doing it so much as the fact that they're doing it?
As Don said, good works are good works. Again, it's better that somebody's doing them than nobody is doing them. But we think that there are better ways possibly to go about it, better reasons. Typically, they're not doing it simply to help other people. They're usually preaching along with it. They're going to try and convert them. They're trying to get money from them. You know, if there's some way of doing that, they have ulterior motives, basically. I mean, and I'm not saying that is a religious thing. I'm saying, you know, unfortunately, that's human nature. Every organization, there is no organization by man that is 100% altruistic. It doesn't happen. If nothing else, you feel good because you're doing it. You know, when I help somebody out and they can't, you know, do anything back for me directly, they can't pay me or whatever, I still, you know, feel good that I did it. And again, I mean, that's a fundamental human quality. Religion likes to take advantage of that. It likes to use the fact that we can help somebody, and if nothing else, they'll feel good about it.
Yeah, and I think that creeds that you know have you know altruism as part of the creed are you know that's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And certainly Christianity certainly has that as part of the creed is to help one another. So it's a good thing.
And unfortunately, a lot of times I do see with these things that they have limiting factors, as in the religion is doing it, the religious group isn't doing it in such a way that it may not be helping in the best way.
Right. Another thing is being optimized, and is another way of saying it.
Exactly. I can't remember who it was. Sam Kinison. Not exactly the most
I don't know.
kindly comic ever to grace our stages, but he used to say, you know, why are we sending all this money to Africa and Ethiopia and whatever when he was around to help all these people get food? Why don't we ship them out to where the food is? And again, a lot of religious groups and other groups are just doing things in a relatively inefficient way. There could be better ways to go about solving the problems than just throwing money at the problem. So.
Okay, understood. Thanks for you guys' time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling. All right. Let's see. We've got about 20 minutes left. Again, 477-2288. And again, we've had a request to just be a little bit more upfront. We are live on Sundays, 4:30 to 6. We have reruns every Tuesday at 4:30 to 6 o'clock, also on Channel 10. So if you don't catch us now, you can catch a rerun on Tuesday. All right. We have got take line. Which one? Okay. Mary, how you doing?
Oh, hi.
Oh, hello.
That doesn't sound like a Mary.
That's not
to
a
me.
Mary.
Hi, I'm Dave.
Okay.
Dave, okay.
Yeah, I was actually in the middle of speaking to the producer when you guys brought me on. So, anyway,
I'm
hi.
sorry. Okay.
Listen, I'm in the middle of a good-natured argument with a Christian friend of mine over just evidence for the earthly existence of Jesus. Do you guys? What's the latest? Where are we with that? Is it entirely biblical, or is there anything ever outside of it that says yes or no?
Yeah.
And I'm going to hang up and listen.
Oh, okay.
Okay, take
All right.
care.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I have actually not studied into that all that much. Mostly, my intuition kind of says that there may not be all that much out there simply because of the lack of any corroborating evidence. There's no Roman records that have been found that says, Jesus was walking around, or, here's a census that was done and there's Jesus on it, or anything like that. The one that's usually trotted out is Josephus. And they have a slight passage in there that says, Jesus was around and he did good stuff. But it's a very short passage. It's very out of context. It's kind of thrown into the middle of other things. And pretty much every scholar I've ever heard from has said that's commonly accepted to be a forgery or inserted at a later date to kind of back up the Christian argument. So basically, just given the lack of any evidence for him, I would say probably not. But there are also arguments on the other side, as in Jesus was a very common name. There were hundreds of thousands of street corner preachers at that time. Is it entirely unlikely that the Bible could have been based on one of them? It's possible. We don't know.
So I think the short version is the debate is still very much raging, and it hasn't been decided one way or the other.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Aha, that was a problem.
Let's try again for Mary.
We have, yes. Mary, how you doing?
Fine, and I'd like to congratulate y'all on questioning the myth of Mother Teresa. And if anything, I would be less polite than you were. I mean, she glorified suffering so much that in her houses, it was documented in the British Medical Journal, they were extremely sparing with the painkillers.
Mm-hmm. Whoa.
And when she herself was ailing, she didn't check into one of her own facilities. She flew first class to someplace really nice abroad.
Yeah, that's telling, isn't it?
And by the way, I could think of someone that nobody could dig up any dirt on.
Oh.
I grew up in South Texas, and in the aftermath of Selena's shooting, the Tejana singer, Corpus was crawling with tabloid reporters trying to dig up something dirty on her.
Oh, okay.
And nobody could.
Okay.
I mean, she was just a really nice young woman.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, anyway, thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Maybe we could do a little show on Mother Teresa someday, but
yeah, I've heard a lot
today.
about her, but I haven't really. Again, one of those things that I haven't checked into all that much. So, but yeah, I have heard a lot of again, not the nicest stories out there.
Right.
About her. So.
Her questionable miracle for her beatification.
Yes.
Yeah, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we have got Bobby. How you doing?
Hello?
Yep.
Hey, you guys got a great show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to, as a gay person, I just wanted to speak out on gay marriage. First of all, I'm against it.
Okay.
Okay.
I do not favor the idea only because if you look at the heterosexual divorce rate, it's almost 54%.
Okay.
And so if you ask anybody that's been divorced, you know, there were lawyers and there were judges and there were courts involved and a lot of things were out of your control. Why would you ever want the government to be more involved in your life than they already are?
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Because when you're married, the government becomes a third party to your agreement. I mean, I'm saying two gay guys getting together, hey, you know, you don't like somebody? Hey, pack your shit, get the hell out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of a separate argument that, again, I've had, you know, here and there, is just that should the government be involved with marriage in any in any way, shape, or form?
And what surprises me, as you know, just in your view as well too, is that I find myself in a federalistic kind of mode. I have to fight for that right. It's like cigarettes. You know that you probably shouldn't be smoking cigarettes when you're 16.
Yeah.
You probably know it doesn't lead to anything good. But I still have to stand on the side of my gay brothers and sisters to say I need to fight for your right to be able to do that, whether it's healthy for you or not.
Exactly.
Then that, you know, let the courts decide what that is. But I would never, ever consider gay marriage at all, and I would never recommend it.
That's a good point.
But at the same time, I have to fight for the right to be able to do, you know, to smoke, to be able to, you know, be non-discriminated against.
Exactly. If other people want to do this, they want to get married, they want to smoke, I don't have any problem with letting them. It's just I may not partake in it myself.
I personally think we ought to just settle on an equal. Just say, make it a civil union, or don't disturb these heterosexual images of marriage. Don't do that.
You think all the Christians are in uproar now? Let's go to them and say, let's just get rid of all marriage then.
Well, I mean, if they were doing it any better, the divorce rate wouldn't be 54%. So,
True,
you know,
true.
And primarily this whole gay marriage thing is just for lesbians anyway. You know, because they're the ones that really shack up for life.
Yeah, someone posted in our email list as a joke that, you know, why would anybody really be for gay marriage?
Want the IRS
it's
coming
a
up
chick thing, isn't it? So.
You know, advancing something out of your next paycheck because you married this guy?
Yeah.
That's just wrong. Guys are a whole lot different than women.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things to consider, and certainly I think if there are children involved, it makes sense for the state to step in and potentially look out for the interests of the children, because...
Well, here's what I say, guys, and I'll let you go on this.
Okay.
My policy as a gay guy, don't ask, don't yell.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just in the background doing my thing. Just leave me alone.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Later on.
Thanks for calling. All right. Who do we have now? We have got, yes. Craig, how you doing?
Hi, Ashley. Hi, Don.
Hi.
I tuned in kind of late this week, so I apologize in advance if you've already talked about the U.S. Attorney General.
No, actually we haven't.
But you didn't mention it, but John Ashcroft had a stomach demon this week.
Yeah, he had a
Gallstone?
That was-
pancreatitis or something like that. Yeah.
Gallstone pancreatitis was
Yeah.
a medical diagnosis, but I checked my biblical concordance. I could not find gallstone pancreatitis in the Bible.
Okay.
All it talks about is demons. And I think that
Okay.
this man, being a man that has said that he values faith over science, this man really needs to go to Jerry Falwell or to Oral Roberts or
Exactly.
to Billy Graham.
Yeah.
He really shouldn't be going to the hospital, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's always interesting to see all these faith healers like Benny Hinn. They'll heal, 100 people a night on stage, but as soon as they stub their toe, they're off to the $1 million doctors. So you kind of wonder, why don't they just all get together once a week, lay hands on each other, cure everything, and they'll live forever? So, but they don't do that, and apparently John Ashcroft doesn't either.
Well, the man says he believes in the efficacy of prayer, but I'm sure he has the best medical attention that money can buy. That's all I have to say.
Just
Okay.
in case.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for calling.
Sure.
Yeah, we every now and then they had a thing on Benny Hinn, I think it was, a long time ago, like maybe a year ago or something like that. One of these expose things on Benny Hinn with behind the scenes reporting and such, and it was a very telling episode. So
Yeah, he's kind of a crook.
to put it very nicely. All right, we have got line 2 or line 1 or 3. 3. Okay, we will go with Rob. How you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Yeah, pretty well.
This is actually the first time I've called in. I looked at your show and I found it pretty interesting and all. I was raised a Roman Catholic, but pretty much veered away from all that in the sense that you kind of got to sift through all the BS and all the religions to kind of figure out what it is that's real, maybe what isn't real, and then again, I guess that's called faith. But my question is to you is, earlier you had made mention to the fact that we don't really know everything we need to know about science and the human body, and there's still more to learn.
Yeah.
Well, saying that, do you think that there's still a lot more to learn about faith itself? And I was wondering if maybe if your faith was even opened up to change, if you guys came about some information that, made you go, boom, and the light bulb goes on top of your head and goes, I found out something new. Maybe I should kind of, rethink what I believe and all that. And I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, are you guys open to something like that, being atheist?
Yeah. If ever some kind of evidence were presented for supernatural beings or ideas, telekinesis, nothing else, it's certainly something that could be possible. Now, it would be extremely difficult to come up with some kind of proof or evidence for God, because science is basically working with the natural world.
So do you guys look for physical proof to base your beliefs on, or do you guys have any faith at all in the fact that, maybe things all could be this way, looking at it through your glasses as well as mine, because, personally, like I said, I've grown up to learn to kind of dismiss a lot of the preconceived beliefs that a lot of the religions have to offer, and you kind of have to learn to kind of work your way and use your own life experience to kind of figure out what you think is right. And I was just wondering if you guys are looking for that solid, I have to see it, evidence to actually change your mind, or is there a line that you guys walk that and you go, well, you know what, maybe this is true, maybe I should go down that path and actually think about doing that?
There's a difference that I would draw between trust and faith. Faith typically means that you will believe something despite complete lack of evidence.
Right.
Whereas trust is, I may not have full evidence. I cannot prove it 100% that the sun will come up tomorrow.
Right.
But I trust that it will. There's a pretty good chance that it will. Again, there's a level of trust there. And so again, some levels of trust are perfectly warranted. You have to assume that when I walk into my apartment tonight, when I flick the light switch, it's going to produce light.
Right.
I've got to have some level of trust in that.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate you guys' show. I may not exactly believe everything that you guys agree with everything you guys do, but hey, you know what? I'm glad we have a country we live in where we can actually express these beliefs without any repercussions of going to jail or anything like that. But hey, all the support to you guys and good luck. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, again, there's a big difference between faith and trust. Again, 100% faith, in something when there's no evidence or no proof of it, I don't think is a good way to be creating worldviews.
And living your life. It's dangerous.
Yeah. Again, if you're going to take something with absolutely no basis in fact, that can be found, it opens the door to lots of other things, and basically believing in lots of other things that, again, have no basis in fact.
Sure, and it's especially
and that's
dangerous
where
if you
things
get a mob psychology back behind it.
Exactly.
Know,
Exactly. Exactly.
Doing things in the name of nonsense
name of,
or whatever, something that doesn't turn out to be true.
Yeah. Anything from flying planes into buildings to taking the Kool-Aid. So,
yeah,
I mean,
getting a punch.
Yeah, exactly. So. All right, we have got a couple more callers lined up. Again, we got 10 minutes left of the show, 477-2288. We're live on Sunday the 7th, and we are going to go out talk to Ray. How you doing?
Hey, the Bible beaters, they damn the gays because they don't believe in sanctity of marriage under God. But then when they try it, they damn them also. How can we win? Is that fucked up or what?
Yeah. Well, can't win for losing, right?
The Bible is the big book of multiple choice. You can find any position you want and back it up equally well using the Bible.
Well, Rick Perry could take some lessons from us. I'm sure you've heard that one.
Yeah.
Once or twice.
Oh, come on, come out, Governor.
Well. Okay, did you have anything else for us?
That's it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Sean. All right. Did you want to do something? I got actually something really quick I could go over.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and...
This is just
changing the tone a little bit here.
Kind of fun.
Getting a little less serious.
Went out with a friend a while ago and did some geocaching and found one of these little trinkets out there. And this is...
So geocaching is kind of a scavenger hunt using global positioning system GPS.
Using those little handheld GPS units. You can go out and find, caches that have been hidden. And this is what I found in one of them. Wash away your sins, moist towelettes. Now, this is a parody. This is not an actual product, unfortunately. Sometimes the real products are that much more fun.
But they have a whole product line here. They have the soap. And
I have seen bars of soap and conditioner probably and stuff like that. But yeah, the wash away your sins moist towelettes. And if we can read the instructions on the back, right your wrongs with a wipe. Directions for use: remove moist towelette, devoutly wipe away wrongdoing. Spot check for stubborn guilt, wipe again as needed. Discard sins in waste receptacle. Go forth, purified and moisturized. No better antibacterial formula. Kill sins on contact. Handy reliable. Wash away your sins. Moist towelettes. So that's what we had there. The other thing that we had, and I'm sure a lot of people in town have seen these, but I just finally got around to picking one up. They have Chewy's restaurant, and they have their the silverware comes in these packages, and on the back they have got this.
Sanitized for your protection.
Put up here. Yeah, sanitized for your protection. And if you can't read that, these are all a bunch of
various mealtime prayers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're a Protestant, bless, O Lord, this food to our use and us to thy service, and make us ever mindful of the needs of others. In Jesus' name, amen. They also have a Catholic and a Jewish one. So it's very inclusive and very trinkety. But those are always fun.
Maybe we should come up with an atheist prayer or something.
Exactly. I
get it on there.
Yes, we thank the cooks and kind wait staff at this restaurant for serving us this lovely food. So, all right. Again, we've got a couple minutes left. If you want to give us a call, 477-2288. Did you say you had a couple more things you could hit?
Yeah, I had a little interesting thing. I have a little. I'm going to read a part of an article from the magazine called Free Inquiry, which is a secular humanist magazine. There's no punches about that. And this is the February-March issue, and it's talking about. Let me just go ahead and read it. It's talking about the fact that the Catholic Church is exerting some influence in our government here. Let me read the first paragraph or so. Government and political leaders may soon have to decide between two masters, the public good and the Catholic Church. That's because the church is applying pressure like never before on public servants to get their policy statements in line with religious teachings. 2 recent Vatican directives have prohibited Catholic office holders from supporting homosexual marriage, and U.S. bishops are discussing penalties from speaking bans to. U.S. bishops are discussing penalties from speaking bans to excommunication for this and other instances of ignoring church doctrine. So here we have the Pope, who is basically a foreign leader, leader of a foreign country. The Vatican's considered a foreign country, and he's basically coming in and influencing our politics.
Yeah.
And this strikes me as kind of annoying. You know, it kind of pisses me off a little bit because you know, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, no doubt, but he didn't have the balls to come and meddle with our politics, right?
Yeah.
But the Catholic Church has no problem doing that. So
Yeah.
anyway, I thought that was a little worth a little comment.
More and more religious people trying to get their fingers into other things where they shouldn't be.
Yep.
Let's see. We have got Jamie. How you doing?
Just fine.
Hi.
Hey, I had a quick question for you guys, just because I myself have never just sat down with an atheist and talked to them.
Okay.
But are you guys based on, we don't believe anything religiously, or is it mainly Christianity? Because I don't see like a Buddhist-free dish on your show.
Okay. The main reason, we don't believe in any gods, period. Now, the reason that we usually focus on Christianity is just because we're in America. That's what the dominant religion is over here. That's what most of our callers call in about. We have, just as much lack of faith in the Hindu gods and the elephant gods and Allah and any other god that you care to present to us.
Thor and whatever. Yeah.
Thor and Isis. None of them exist either, as far as we're concerned. But again, this is America. Christianity is the dominant religion over here. That's the one that comes up the most often.
Okay. I was just curious.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Charlotte.
And here's a little food for thought. If you don't believe in Thor, then you're an atheist too.
Exactly.
We just believe in one less God than you do, most likely.
Yep. Of the hundreds of thousands of gods that have existed throughout history, we're just one less than you are.
Yep.
So, all right. We have Steve. What you got for us?
Just a quick question,
Okay.
and then I'll hang up. Do you guys actually believe that the gay marriage amendment will go through? I mean, is that a real serious threat, or is that just something for a political year type thing?
My feeling is that it won't. I think that if you were to sort of take a poll today, which many people have done, the feeling is a sort of
we lost him. Okay.
Against gay marriage, but I think as there's more discussion and more thought about it, people will come around and sort of shed off the emotionally charged arguments and will reason about it. So in some ways, maybe it's not a threat, but certainly the president and others have put it on the front burner and said that this is a very important issue for America, and we're reacting to that.
Yeah, I've kind of heard both ways, but I really think that if this were something that were seriously being pushed, rather than just an idea that's being floated around, I think there'd be a lot more voices and a lot more concern and different views on it. Right now, they're positioning it as in this is protecting marriage. This is protecting man-woman marriage. I think if it were really being pushed hard, then the other side would be coming out saying, no, this is actually restricting the rights of another group of people. Basically, we're taking this minority group and we're saying, no, you can't have what everybody else has. And I think that a lot of people would then they're not so much for gay marriage, as in they don't want gay marriage to happen, but they're even less likely to say that we should restrict the rights of other people. And so they would still they wouldn't want to pass something like that.
Yeah, modifying the Constitution is a very, very serious thing.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it takes a big consensus to make that happen.
Yeah, and I don't think we have a consensus. And I think in the time frame that we're talking about, again, it's an election year. I think that is a big factor of what's going on right now. They're trying to, pander to the religious right. I think with the amount of time that something like this would take to get that kind of majority, it's not going to happen. So at least we can hope. So, anyway, thanks everybody for watching. It's been another good week. We are Again, right now it's Sunday. We have reruns every Tuesday, 4:30 to 6. And we have bagel shop, or bagel shop meetings. We have meetings every Sunday. If you go to our website, atheist-community.org, you can find information there. Also, if you did not get a chance to call in, or you think of something during the week that you want to tell us about, we have an email address, tv@atheist-community.org. Go ahead and write us, give us feedback, and we'd love to hear from you. Anyway, hope you had a great time. Everybody have a good weekend and enjoy the week, and we will see you all next week. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.